The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Acuma, its board of directors, its management staff, or its members. The podcast discussion presented is conversational in nature and for general information only.
Hello and welcome to Acuma's On Point Podcast, a series focused on sharing the stories of people who are making a positive impact in the credit union mortgage industry. I'm your host, Peter Benjamin. Before we get to our episode, just a quick word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Cloud Virga, the architects of Tropos, the next generation loan portal that's redefining how lenders engage borrowers. With Tropos, your credit union can unify all its lending products under a single, world-class member experience without overextending limited resources or disrupting existing systems. Tropos makes it easy for your members to compare options, apply for financing, and receive the level of support they prefer from first click-through loan repayment. Build lasting trust by staying connected throughout your members' financial journey. Request a demo today at lendwithtropos.com.
Today, I am joined by Mark Seeley, AVP of Mortgage Lending with America's Credit Union. Mark, what's going on? How are you doing today?
And I'm doing absolutely fantastic, Peter, and blessed to be on here. Thank you for having me.
You know, I am excited to have you on here. This is one of those episodes where we kind of dive into something other than mortgage, have a deeper conversation. One of those conversations that we talk about life, put things into perspective, talk about the good and bad in the world. And ultimately, I think it's, really good timing. We in the credit union space, we pride ourselves in, we'll say, being the compass rose in our industry, sort of say. And I like, the topic that you kind of selected for us to discuss. And so thank you very much for doing that and just getting to know you, over the past few months. There's no better person to discuss this than you. So really excited to have you here. So before we get to it, as always, got to bring Justin in. Justin, the Hawk, how are you doing today? And by the way, what is the latest and greatest happening over at Acuma?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
Whew, living the dream.
I like it. The deep breath. That just expresses where we are right now, right?
I know, right?
I mean, we're only weeks away from our Make Your Mark annual conference.
Counting down the days.
I know, right? And for those of you that don't know, it's going to be happening in Denver this year. If you don't know that, we got to talk to somebody.
Yeah, seriously. You're not checking our socials. Our emails are getting blocked. You're not listening to everything. You are not attending one of the many events I've attended, and you are just blocking me out whenever I talk about annual something.
That's very hard to do. Peter talks about annual a lot.
I do.
I know, but anyways, it's going to be happening this year in Denver. So September 21st to the 24th. We're weeks away, but that does not mean that registration is closed. So there's still plenty of time for you to register. We have a lot of tricks up our sleeves. We have some surprises in store for you. If you've ever been to any Acuma annual event with Peter, then you already know Peter has some wild cards planned for you that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, some not just surprises. I think we have some things that play into the normal Denver culture, I guess that's a way of framing it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, things that are just like Denver-esque. Denver-esque.
Denverish. Yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure they like to be referred to as Denverish people.
Yeah, I think they're Denverpolitans.
I mean, like even with like all the surprises, we have some really cool, unique things that we've never done before. That I think that people are really gonna. People are gonna love. You're so on the soapbox with this. Come on down. Come back to reality with me. But registration's still open. You still have time, like I said. And if you're a credit union or a CUSO and you're bringing 3 or more of your colleagues with you, from your organization, you can all get a $200 discount. So head over to the Acumen website for more information. Now, if you're not coming to annual, one, we should have the violin music, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, we're so sad because we're gonna miss you. But there's still other opportunities for you to take advantage of. So we have our inside track webinars, our network meetings. So we have the Young Professional Network, the Servicing Network, Marketing Network, Underwriting Network, and the Volume-Based Networks.
A lot
and then
going
we
on.
also have our favorite On Point podcast. So keeping the fun going all year round.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mark, turning our sights back to you. All right, so before we get to our conversation, as always, I start with the same old question. And I start with the same old preface. And I think it's important because, and I think it actually ties in perfectly. Actually, this time, I think it ties in the most perfect than any other conversation that we've ever had. The first question is always, who's Mark? What drives you? What motivates you? What made Mark, right? And that's always the first question. Who is Mark? Who's the guy behind the scenes? You can take that personally, you can take that professionally. It doesn't really matter. As I said in my intro, this podcast was designed to tell the stories of people who make a positive impact in the credit union mortgage industry. We did that on purpose, right? It's you and I both have spent time on both sides of the fence, right? Credit union and non-mortgage lenders. I think we can agree there's some really special people on this side. Our stories need to be told. We have something special going on. Let's share those stories. Let's spread the good word about credit unions and why more people need to come, not just work for credit unions, but more people need to come get their mortgages for credit unions because there's just generally good people on this side. So, first question, who is Mark?
Boy, that's a loaded question, Peter.
I know, seriously, I do it on purpose, man. I do it on purpose.
I'd say who is Mark. I'm a product of my upbringing from my parents, obviously, like we all are, and a lot of the values that I have are because of great parents that I had in raising me. Of course, I didn't know it at the time. When you're a teenager, all you want to do is do your own thing. But as you grow and you get that wonderful word that starts with W, wisdom, then you start to realize. So
what word is that?
Wisdom.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes. The study of things that don't change is what I like to call that. In a there's other meanings depending on how you view wisdom, but that's kind of a big word for me. But I'm blessed. I'm just blessed. I think. I'm an individual that's been in this industry now for over 20 years and had a kind of a unique perspective. And I'm thankful to be in the credit union space. I'm coming up on only about my third year in the credit union space. And I can honestly say that it's it is the best time that I've had in the mortgage industry. It's, as you had mentioned, the good people that we have here, the willingness of credit unions to do what other financial institutions and mortgage companies really don't do, and that's educate, and that's relationship lending. That is huge for me. I'm a big people person. I love people. I love interacting with people. And I'm what kind of drives me again is again being that leader who understands that everything that we have, we should not take for granted. Every opportunity that we have, whatever we do, whether it's at home, whether it's here at the workplace and in between, to always be kind and compassionate in everything that we do to people, with people. And that's what I think really separates credit unions from other places. But yeah, I mean, personally, I have a family that I have 3 kids. I have a 22-year-old son. I have an 18-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter. And I'm an avid heavy metal hard rock guy, and an avid Seattle sports fan, professional sports fan. So those are some of the personal things. And I'm not from the Pacific Northwest, but I do love it here. And you guys have been out here, there's so much to do and see. It's a very beautiful place, except from about early November through February. And then we just have to kind of get through things or take a vacation, because it gets dark at like 4:15, 4:30, so, but yeah, that's just a little bit about me. And, again, that's just, I'm just driven to help people and lead. That's really my biggest thing. Is everyone's a leader, and they may not have the title of a leader, but everyone's there to lead and be an example. And, that's important because everybody's watching.
Okay. Favorite heavy metal band?
Man, that is a loaded question, Peter.
It's a
loaded question.
2 for 2.
I mean, I would have to say I go through phases.
Okay.
Right now, over the past few years, it's a band called Demon Hunter. They're from Seattle. They're a Christian metal band. But for many years, it was Metallica. How could it not be? I mean, they're the kings of heavy metal.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife asked me the other day, and she's not much into heavy metal. She asked me, she goes, if there was one metal band that you could listen to for the rest of your life, I feel like it would be Metallica. And I said, you're probably right, because they had this huge catalog, and I probably wouldn't get sick of listening to their stuff, So,
yeah, I mean, who doesn't have at least some Metallica on their playlist?
Yeah. I mean, they're amazing. Everybody knows Metallica,
They are good. They are fantastic. A long time ago, a friend of mine took me to a Cannibal Corpse concert.
Whoa!
And I will say, the nicest people. People. I was shocked how nice everyone was at that concert. So,
in fact, it's funny that you mentioned that the lead singer, George Corpse Grinder Fisher, actually did a children's series at one point, like with children, about heavy metal. And you would never think, listening to somebody who obviously their music can be very dark, but obviously it's show and shock value and things like that. When you get the people behind this, when you get to know the people behind it, it's amazing. They're really they're human beings like us,
That's right. You hear stories of how, they're in people are in the mosh pit and they get knocked over, and there's like a flood of people picking them up, asking them if they're okay, and making sure that everyone is safe. And I think you wouldn't think that from outsider looking in, but I was blown away when I was actually there, how friendly everyone was.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyways, I know, off track, different topic, different conversation for another day. So you said something during the answer to the first question, which was, who is Mark? You said something that I kind of want to go back and not so much pick on, but continue the conversation on. I think this is where we really focus on the meat and potatoes of today's conversation. You said that you take nothing for granted and realize that really kind of sort of like everything's a gift, right?
It is.
And here's the thing, right? It's, you have 3 kids, and prior to this call, I mentioned that, I really want to focus in on this, or prior, not so much this call, but this podcast recording. I really want to focus on this topic because, it's this topic in particular, something that I'm struggling with my son. And you immediately respond saying, hey, I'm doing the same thing with my 18-year-old, right? It's the idea that we have to be good stewards, right? We choose our attitude every single day. We wake up one foot out of bed, and we get to decide who sees us as a good person or a bad person. It's almost like the running joke of that person chose violence today, right?
Yeah.
Or, does that we as parents, we instinctively might say our kids are great people because we see a different side of our kids than other people do. But every single day I tell my kids, Mom and Dad believe in you. Mom and Dad know how smart you are. Mom and Dad know how kind you are. It's your job as human beings to let the world see that, and that kindness goes a lot further in life than anything else. So be that person out in the world, right? And I tell my kids that every single day. But more importantly, I recently started telling my kids, life is a blessing. It's up to you to choose what you do with it, right? And so, your response to my request for topics just came out at such a perfect timing that I just wanted to carry on with it. So if you could, how's that mindset for you kind of helped you be successful with regard, it can be, let's start with, I think we have to start professionally, and then,
Sure.
Then we'll go personally. How does it help you, navigate your career, but also your personal life? That mindset of nothing's taken for granted. You're a good steward. You take it however direction you want, but again, like I said, every day is a blessing. It's up to you to do with it what you will. But go.
Yeah. It's a good question, and to me, it's important to be a good steward because of the things that we're given are a blessing. And we could talk about how hard life is, but we can also talk about, and we want to focus on being positive and having, realizing the gifts that we have are valuable. And we're not going to be good stewards of something that we're given if we don't value that. And that's really kind of what drives me, not just professionally, but, in everything that I do, but also, professionally here at the credit union. I've been given this opportunity to lead a team, a mortgage team, to help our members achieve homeownership or whatever, type of mortgage situation that they need, at that given time, or bring in new members. And I value that. And it's not something that I'll say I just come to work every day and I make a paycheck, because that's not what it is for me. It's coming in and realizing I have this opportunity, I have this privilege, and I need to be a good steward of it. I need to make sure that I give 100% of myself to my team, to our members, and to our, not just the mortgage team, but also, other folks that I interact with, whether it's the senior leadership team, the executive team, realtors in the community, referral partners, community outreach, things like that. It's all about giving 100% of yourself every day to whoever you're dealing with. And that's, like you talked about, Pierre, like teaching your children about being kind and compassionate. That's when they value people, they're going to do that. And that's really, valuing others and valuing their, opinions and their perspective on things and listening to them. That's really important about being a good steward as well. So it's a tall order. I mean, being a good steward is hard. It's not easy. And again, as I said, not taking anything for granted, because we tend to, as humans, want to take certain things for granted, and we have to constantly, remind ourselves and really, push ourselves to be, very intentional about all the wonderful gifts that we've been given, the gifts and the talents that we've been given as humans to be, to use to be successful, to help out others.
No, and I love that. I love that you said we have to be intentional about the gifts that we've been given, because all too often we do overlook that, right? And I think you may have heard me say this in Seattle, and I say it almost to the point where I'm blue in the face. It's our job as credit union mortgage professionals to do one thing: put families in homes, right? Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough, Justin's been fortunate enough, and I'd like to think that you've been fortunate enough. We've been able to buy homes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to think that at this point in time, as a result of that, we are taking that process, our knowledge, our efforts, that experience. You can name it whatever you want, but we're basically passing it down to the families who have never done it before, and letting them share that joy, share that experience, because it brings people closer together. It builds that family bond. It builds community. I mean, you name it. But that's what I love about our industry, because it has the ability to unite. It has the ability to continue those efforts. It's not just about families, it's about community, it's about everything. But kind of going back to the individual, it does become difficult as thinking back to you and I have been. It seems like you and I have been in the industry for the same amount of time, 20 plus years. Thinking back to the early 2000s, and the paychecks were pretty much flying off the shelf, and the good old days, right, when it's more like a frat party everywhere you went. And really, if you think about it, 2020, 2021, when those refinances were rolling in, you almost got a sense of that feeling again, right? That the good times are back, and we started the industry as a whole started taking things for granted again. Do you agree? I mean,
I agree. Whenever there's a surplus of loans for whatever reason, or the market, dictates that, low rates or, loans at any cost, like we had in the, early to mid 2000s, all of the, lenders out there who were doing, any type of loan that they could do. And
95 no doc at 620.
95 no doc. I was a countrywide guy, so fast and easy and no ratio loans. That's where I got my start. And so, yeah. And then but when that happens, again, two things. You naturally, we're going to lose sight of what's important, because we're so busy and so driven just to produce from a transactional standpoint, right? And lending becomes transactional. And don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to having money, but money should never be one's motivator in this type of business. It is about, as you mentioned, putting people in homes, putting families in homes, and putting them in the best possible position financially to be able to enjoy that home. And that's why I love the credit union space more than anything, because as I've learned in these past almost 3 years, is that credit unions care more than anyone else about doing that, and I truly believe that.
And I'm glad you answered, you kind of took where I was going, my rant, in that direction. In many ways, I was trying to sandbag you in that direction, because if anything, that's almost the credit union mortgage lender's credo, right? We think about its members first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we will make some decisions for a member just because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. When I ran a mortgage division, I remember this one time where, granted it was a refinance. It wasn't a purchase. It was a refinance, but the member had, when she came to us, she had a 65% DTI. And through this refinance, we were going to drop her down to, again, from a 65, we were going to drop her down to a 52. For all intents and purposes, any other lender probably would have denied her. But if you think about it, that's a significant savings.
Mm-hmm.
So we just did it. We put her in a better space.
Yeah.
And so even if we knew that it was still a stretch, and even though we knew that it was still 52%, she always had on-time payments, so she made it work. She was never late. So she made her finances work, even though she had a 65% DTI. But we knew that by dropping her to a 52%, we were just making things a little bit more comfortable for her. And I know for a fact that at the community bank I was right before I joined the credit union, never would have done that. Hands down.
We wouldn't have been able to do that at any of the bank or the mortgage company that I worked at. That's not, that's the beauty. I still keep in touch with some of my colleagues, in the IMB world, and that's the beauty. Like, how are things going at the credit union? I said, well, they're going great. I get to make decisions for people and do loans where I can be creative and still, mitigate risk for the credit union, knowing that every loan that we do is going to be a good loan. Right. And it's going beyond just the numbers and, the automated underwriting systems and what the agencies allow. And it's saying, do we trust that this person will make their payment? And judging by everything that we have and the compensating factors that they have, we'll give them what we feel good about giving them the loan. And that is something that I experienced a little bit on the banking side when I was in banking, but not that much. But here at the credit union, it goes a long way, because when you do a loan for someone like that, they don't feel like a number. I had a group, had a couple who, was a new member. They came in from a referral from an agent that I know, and they'd never worked with a credit union before. And I remember we did a loan for them, and we did some creative financing for them. And I just remember, at the end, her name is Jamie. Jamie said, Mark, thank you for making us not feel like a number, like we matter, like going beyond just looking at our bank statements and our income and seeing that, we're people, and that we, have that we're human, and that, our drive is to, own a home and then have an investment property. And then they had 3 months later, they came back and they refinanced their investment property with us, which was great. And now they're full-fledged members with us. But, I wouldn't have been able, as you said, Peter, I wouldn't have been able to do that in any other type of financial institution or IMB. And that really is just, that helps me. That helps me realize that I'm blessed to be a good steward, because I get those opportunities, and we don't want to lose any of those opportunities that we have. So whenever they come up, that's why we got to give 100% of ourselves to that member to help them. And even if we can't, we can at least educate them to know that these are the things they need to do eventually to own a home. And then most of the time they'll come back to us if we take the time to do that.
No, I love that. No, I have to ask this question. And, before I kind of sort of get to the last question, obviously, this is a mindset. This is a practice that you have instilled in your life, and it's one that I don't want to say is a newly adopted one for me, but it's one that you kind of mature into, right? Yeah. It's the wisdom that you gain from life experience, right? And it's not easy. You just have to grow into this. You have to go through, take some licks. You have to have your fair shares of ups and downs. You kind of learn to appreciate the certain things in life, right? Has it always been this way for you? Has it always been this mindset of, I'm blessed, I need to pay it forward to others? Or has there just been times where you're like, I'm just grumpy?
Well, I try not to be grumpy, but in all honesty, to answer your question, in my younger years, in my early in my career, the drive was to move up and make more money, right? That was the goal. And now I still had a good, foundation of what it means to be a good steward, but that really came, Peter, with experience, with raising a family and all the challenges of having a family. But also, I think really important was learning what going through good leadership and bad leadership and what that looks like. And I honestly learned more from bad leaders than I did good leaders, from what it means what it means to be a bad leader and to do good, right? And that's kind of what allowed me to realize that, the mindset that I have now. I think that's where I learned the most. And it was certainly not all, roses and bonbons and apples and oranges and, wonderful tasting fruit. It's been challenging at times. And I've gone through some really challenging work experiences and to get to where I'm at. And but that drives you, you know, and you probably hear this adversity, and I'm trying to teach my kids this: adversity is okay. It teaches you character, and it allows you to learn, you know, and really dig deep in yourself to really have to push yourself to be successful. So no, it was not always like that, but you know, like I said, with age and maturity comes wisdom, and being a guy, it just, we mature a lot later in life than women do. So it took me a while.
So let me ask you,
pain
Mark.
Pain is weakness leaving the body.
Oh, isn't it though? Let me ask you, Mark, when your back's against that wall, how are you overcoming the adversity? Like, what are you, like, I know you're talking, you mentioned your son a couple of times, like, what are you telling yourself? What are you telling him? Like, how are you creating that mindset for yourself to overcome those?
Yeah, that's a great question,
trials?
Justin. I mean, number one is always being positive, you know, kicking out negativity as much as possible, and always having something to look forward to. You know, you have to have that mindset that there's, if I know I'm going through this adversity, I know I'm going through this, but there's this goal on the other side. And I know if I do these things, I can get there. I know I may not have control over all of that, you know, depending on the circumstances, but I have that goal. And I think that's what drives me if we're going through a little bit of adversity, you know. And we've been through it, you know, at many times. Me and my family certainly have, you know, we've gone through a lot, you know, at times, but it makes, again, coming out on the other side and always having something to look forward to and being positive. Honestly, you'll get to know me as it, you know, more. I have no room for negativity in my life. Like, I just don't, and I don't believe in it. And that doesn't mean I don't get down. That doesn't mean I don't, you know, have a bad day, but I just truly believe in being positive, because that is what ultimately will drive your mindset and your attitude to get through that adversity.
No, I love that. My wife and I, when we first got married, it was kind of like a little statement we had for each other. It was like, you know, we don't really have to like the result, but the result is what it is. And we're happy that it got a result. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was like,
I like that.
It was our way of always being positive. And so it kind of goes to what you're saying. It's like finding that way to continue to find positivity and be positive, even when it's not the most favorable result, but it still worked out somehow.
Yeah, I agree. And you got to keep that mindset. Like I said to Peter earlier, it's intentional. Our mindsets will get bogged down. We'll start to feel like we can't, you know, press on, or, you know, the weight of the world, how much more can I take? And it's like, well, there again, positivity will really change a lot of that, because that to me is what pushes us to go above, you know, where we, you know, what we may not want to do. You know, and I think that's great. So thanks for sharing, Justin.
Well, yeah.
All right. So Mark, we need to start transitioning.
Sure.
But you know, before we do, last question. It's the same last question I ask everybody. You know, what keeps you going? What motivates you? You know, one foot out of bed to push forward, you know, through no matter what. You know, what keeps you going?
You know, Peter, that's a great question. I think for me, what keeps me going when I wake out of bed is every day I wake out of bed, I get up out of bed, I'm alive. I wake up, I've got an opportunity to affect change in, you know, the people that I come in contact with, whether it's my family, whether it's coworkers, people on the street, and just, you know, wake up being blessed and the opportunity to have another day on earth. I know that seems kind of cliche, but it's really true, you know, that we're given that time, you know, and we need to use it to, you know, to the best of our ability. And I think that's ultimately what drives me. I mean, I could say my family obviously drives me out, and taking care of them, you know, but having that mindset, that's part of it. Right. And, you know, I love, again, coming to work and leading this team. That drives me as well. And just being in a position where we can help people in the credit union space realize their dreams. I mean, that drives me as well.
Love it. All right, Mark, we need to transition to the second segment of our podcast. And again, this is where we sometimes do Jeopardy, dad jokes. And of course, you know, today, this is when we're going to do the most requested fan favorite series of dad jokes, which I feel like we haven't done Jeopardy in a hot minute, but it's all good. I'm happy we're doing dad jokes.
I mean, like on one hand, I'm okay with that, and then on the other hand,
Justin always loses at Jeopardy.
Like to hear both. So.
Jeopardy's hard. Jeopardy's hard, man.
Jeopardy.
Oh no, it's not. It's not just hard. Peter it's impossible. He does not believe in like Justin getting easy questions ever.
That's not you. First of all, you pick the questions. You pick the questions. So anyways.
Or the answers, right? Because it's Jeopardy. You have to pick the answers first, right?
That's right.
My favorite was the etc. Just saying.
Yeah. So there's some questions that have like the answers, etc. And it's like, anyways, well, that's another day, another time. So, all right, Mark, here's what we're going to do. You're going to have, prior to the recording, I asked you to come prepared with 2 dad jokes. So you're going to say your 2 dad jokes. Justin's going to do his 2 dad jokes, and I will wrap up with my 2 dad jokes. Whenever you're ready, sir. Mark, please.
Yes. I have to narrow it down to 2. I came with 5, so I'm going to do this. Yeah. Did you know that diarrhea is hereditary?
I did not.
It runs in your genes.
All right,
I started laughing. I started laughing before the punchline.
That's because he's talking about poo.
Yeah, I love poop jokes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does it. Why not talk about it, right?
That's
so,
right.
I mean,
that's why I love it.
Oh, and okay, this one because I put a credit union in it, so this is the other one. I was fired from the credit union on my very first day on the job. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over.
That's a good one too.
I could have gone in another direction, but because we're credit union space, so
that's good. That's good. That's good.
All right.
That's good. Go,
I'll go now.
No, it's not. You know the order.
I know, but just in case. All right. So 2 windmills were sitting on a hill. One asked the other, "Do you have a favorite song?" And the other replies, "Well, all my life I've been a heavy metal fan." See,
this is perfect. I've heard that one before, Justin. That's that's a great one. That's a great
That's all right. I found it and you're talking heavy metal and I was like, This is perfect.
It's perfect. That's a good one.
All right. And then what did the cow say to the what did the cow say to the leather chair?
Oh, I don't know.
What?
Hi, Mom.
Ouch. Talk about putting things in perspective.
Okay.
All right. All right. All right. So, this morning, hold on a second. Oh, I still have my glasses. This morning, I called the paranoia hotline. The guy answered, "How the heck did you get this number?"
Love it.
Sorry, had to put my glasses back on. It's a hard time reading it. All right, so I started running again, and so this morning I went for a run. And I saw my neighbor talking to her cat. It was obvious the poor woman thought that her cat understood her. When I got home, I told my dog. We laughed a lot about it.
Oh, Peter, you have a good delivery for dad jokes. Like you just have a natural like, and I'm a fan.
We already came to Seattle. You don't have to convince him.
No, it's good. It's good. No. I'm prepping him. I'm trying to so he steps up his game at annual, right?
Yes, like that one wasn't good. All right, good. Well, Mark, thank you very much for your time today. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, no.
Enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks to you and Justin and Peter and I'm sorry, Kristen, and just for everything you guys do at Acumen. We're blessed to be a part of the organization, and looking forward to lots of fun in the future.
Absolutely. And Justin, thank you.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
And to close out, thank you again to Cloud Virga for sponsoring today's episode. And to all of you, we know your time is valuable. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Acumen's On Point podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, be well, my friends.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time at the Acuma On Point podcast. If not already, be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. For more great episodes and information, be sure to visit us online at acuma.org. And to get the latest updates, head over to our LinkedIn page.